And the New England Patriots, which is where we'll begin, trading Bazooka Joe Milton to the Dallas Cowboys. And the return, uninspiring. There is, I think, going to be a bigger reaction to this than maybe the trade of a backup quarterback normally warrants. But I think that there's enough info here, and that's with a little help from Mike Reese, little help from Ben Volen. Volen's thing today, I think, was a little more explosive, although if you really dig deep into it, a lot of conjecture. We'll read that in a little bit, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. I know people have strong opinions on Ben Volen and his brand of reporting. I like Volen, personally. I didn't like that one thing that happened, but I do generally. He writes interesting things. Like I was reading through this, and I found myself disagreeing with some of it, but I didn't think any of it was completely out of bounds or something that was just ridiculous to speculate about or write about. I just, like, if you're sensitive, maybe, sure. But I wonder about that. I wonder how much of a factor sensitivity is playing in all of this. Because it sort of seems like from the reporting that maybe Drake May a little sensy about the whole Joe Milton experience. And you heard Andy, and he thinks that maybe it was more of Milton being an issue, the clubhouse and the locker room, telling people he thinks he should be the starting quarterback. I saw that floating around the internet today. I don't know if any of that's true. I never met Joe Milton. The only thing I really know about him from hearing him talk was when he went on Instagram Live after that last game and talked about how he was going to go out and play his best, and, it was important that he go out there and play well, and that people were mad at him for winning that game, but he didn't care, and we'll play that for you later on, too. Because I haven't heard Joe Milton really speak much other than that. And so you want to get an idea of a guy's personality, that's probably the way to do it, but there's not really a whole lot else to mine from. I don't like this trade. I think this trade is a bad return. And it's not even so much that a fifth-round pick, well, you're also giving him a seventh. It's not so much that a fifth-round pick is terrible on its face. It's just that if you're willing to get a fifth-round pick for the guy now, if you throw him out there for another preseason, Drake May misses a week or two with a nagging injury or maybe another concussion. Who knows? I don't know. I don't want to think about that sort of thing. But, injuries happen over the course of the year, week to week. May needs a breather. He needs an off week. Throw Milton in there. He has a good game. All of a sudden, that fifth-round pick's a fourth-round pick. Maybe he plays in a game that's important. Important to the Patriots. They're looking to make a playoff push. May's out for a game. Milton comes in, wins him one. Wins him a big one. Puts him over 500. I don't know. Something like that. Now maybe that fourth-round pick's a third-round pick, and it goes and it goes and it goes. I don't see what the point of pulling the ripcord on him is right here. And not for nothing, I'd tell him to his face if he was still sitting here, but I didn't really love what Ted Johnson was saying about Drake May. And, if Drake May is going to be feeling like he's competing with this sixth-round pick, well, okay, is Drake May not going to rise to the occasion and meet that challenge? Well, he was the third overall pick, so what? Zach Wilson was the second overall pick. Trey Lance was the third overall pick. You can't have those guys competing? Of course you can. And you should. I don't know that Drake May had the type of season last year that was just so mind-blowingly good that there's no possible way anybody else on that roster could compete with him. And what's wrong with a little competition, honestly? Was iron sharpening iron last year with him and Jacoby Brissett? Let's be honest. Or maybe a little competition could be a good thing. I don't think he would lose a QB competition to Joe Milton. Does anyone really think he would? I don't think he would. Does he think he would? Joe Milton probably thinks he could beat him in the competition, but I don't really know a whole lot of other people who do. Aside from the weird Joe Milton callers that we get here on this show and on this station all the time. And I don't know, I'm surprised I haven't heard more from them today. They must be devastated today. This is like the worst. This is the worst day ever for the Joe Milton people. And I know you Joe Milton people are out there. I heard from you all year. I heard from you on the Sunday show. I heard from you in the afternoons. I'm hearing from you at night. I hear from you a lot. And it's not just one or two of you. There are dozens of you. Like the Never Nudes and Arrested Development. There are dozens of you. And I wonder where you're at. because I wasn't a Joe Milton person, and I think this trade blows. What is there any possible way you could look at this and think the Patriots won this trade? Of course not. They dumped him. And maybe there was things going on behind the scenes that constituted a dumping. I don't know. But if the main thing going on behind the scenes that constituted said dumping was that Drake May's family didn't like the pick, or that Drake May didn't like that he played in that last game. By the way, I didn't like it either because he won the game. And now the Patriots aren't going to get Travis Hunter. So I didn't like that either. I have a bit of a beef with Joe Milton, too. But I feel like Drake May, if he played in that game, he probably would have gone out and won the game, too. Ipso facto, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But you bring in Josh Dobbs to be the backup, which as soon as I saw that move, I was like, what'd they do that for? They have a backup quarterback. They have a backup quarterback who I think is better than Josh Dobbs. Even if it's just based on that one week 18-0 game against the third-string Buffalo Bills. I'm pretty sure it's a better thing than you got here. Or we got a better thing than you got there. But no, they wanted to bring him in. And on some level, I do understand the want or desire to have your young 23-year-old second-year quarterback not be paired up with someone who's also in his early 20s and fighting for a spot in the NFL, but with a wise, sage, elder, statesman type of backup quarterback, like he had last year, right, with Jacoby Brissett. But I think we all agree that wasn't exactly. Did that really benefit him in a lot of ways? Do you feel like he got much, much better playing with Jacoby Brissett? Brissett bringing him along. It seemed like Brissett was competing for that starting job just as much as Drake May and Joe Milton would be. We interviewed Jacoby Brissett last year, and he said, I'm a starting quarterback. He didn't want to give that up. Then, of course, he started shooting those commercials where he's like, I'm the backup quarterback, and I'm going to come do your taxes or whatever it was. Remember those ads? It was him and, who are the other ones? Colt
McCoy was one.
Yeah, McCoy was in one of them. There was a few other ones, but yeah, I remember that. I remember we interviewed him, and Andy asked him, he's like, do you think you're good enough to be one of the starting quarterbacks in the league? Are you a top 32 quarterback? And he's like, of course I am. Of course I am. And he's like, this is Jacoby Brissett for Progressive, and I'm a backup quarterback, and I'm going to do your taxes. Or it wasn't Progressive. I forget what it was. Maybe it was Progressive. Whatever it was. We all remember those ads. I just don't remember what it was for. Either way, I kind of get that. I thought Mac Jones would have been better off if they had held on to Hoyer instead of going with Zappe. But I also thought that Mac Jones and Zappe were a lot closer to each other than Drake May and Joe Milton, and I still think that right now. I don't think that Drake May and Joe Milton are particularly comparable. I think if Joe Milton played all year, we would not be having this conversation. If you drop him in here and there like you do with a backup, then yeah, you build up his trade value. And let's be honest here. This year coming up isn't a playoff season, I don't think. I'm not looking at this upcoming season and thinking, this is a real chance for them to get back to the playoffs and they have to eliminate all the distractions of what. No, you don't. It's a season of a rebuild. It's season 2 of a rebuild. Hopefully it's better than last year with the 4 wins. But it's an okay time to throw your backup quarterback in there and boost up his trade value and pay it forward to the next year and tell Josh Dobbs, sorry, buddy, we're going to go with Milton here and we're going to see if we can maximize this asset. Because they did not maximize this asset. And that, I think, is the biggest crime. That's the part of it I have the biggest issue with. It was an asset. You drafted in the 6th round, a 6th-round quarterback. And there was some legitimate interest in him. We read today it was the Raiders, it was the Giants, it was all these teams, the Eagles. There was only one offer that got made, and I think what probably happened there is that they overplayed their hand a little bit. Teams like the Raiders decided, forget that, I'm going to go for Geno Smith or whatever, and they went out and did their thing. Giants go out and get Jameis and Russell Wilson and do whatever they're doing. I think that, maybe they missed the boat a little bit and thought that Joe Milton was more impressive or impressed them more than he did. But he was going in that direction. He was going in the direction of asset on the rise. And if you let him go out there and get loose in the preseason, put a few more highlights out there on YouTube, get in a couple of regular season games, maybe a start or two over the course of the regular season, just if May goes, twists his ankle or something. Well, what the hell is he that big of an issue that you just needed to get rid of him? I don't see why you would pass up on that. I don't see why you'd pass up on that for Josh Dobbs. It doesn't make sense. Also, if you don't want to believe what Ben Volen said, and we'll read what he said in a little bit, Mike Reese said this clears the runway for Drake May, and I agree with Andy Hart 100%. Clear the runway? What do you mean clear the runway? Joe Milton was on the runway? Like, what are you talking about? He wasn't on the runway. Drake May's got the whole runway. He's got the whole airfield. Okay? He doesn't. There's no other planes in the runway. What are you talking about? Joe Milton is his backup who got into one game. And he was good in that game. All right? He was good. He impressed people. People started calling about him. I think that went about as well as it possibly could have. If you're talking about maximizing the asset, if you're talking about picking first in the draft, it went about as bad as it could have. But if you're talking about maximizing your sixth-round backup quarterback asset, then you took a step in the right direction with that game at the end of the year. And now you're throwing it away. And I just don't see the point of that. Also, Josh McDaniel spoke today. We'll get into what he had to say. Wants a fresh start for everyone. Wide receivers, offensive line, Drake May, everybody's getting a fresh start, according to Josh McDaniels. I'm interested in seeing how serious he takes that.